For the past 8 decades, Chevrolet has sold over 2.5 million Suburbans since the model's inception in 1935. It's a remarkable story that continues today. GM's full-sized SUVs control 75% of the XXL SUV market.
It's a very complicated product requiring thousands and thousands of parts to put it together.
Every 63 seconds, a newly painted body arrives on the general assembly line. Team members remove the doors, then add the rear tailgate badges, and install the massive sunroof.
You can see we built vehicles in sequence here. So when you build vehicle number 2, you got to have all the parts for 2. When you build vehicle number 37, you got to have the parts for vehicle number 37.
Arlington Assembly runs on a variant of the just-in-time manufacturing system. One of the most critical deliveries is the hefty wiring harness.
Over there you have the main body wiring station. And the little housing that you see there, it's a mini oven.
The small oven preheats the harness, which makes the wires easier to bend during installation.
So as you can see, he's just putting it inside the truck and just doing the initial setup. You will have different team members doing the final routing and clipping and connections.
Next, they add the headliner. Foot pedals, brake booster, rear seat belts, and tail lights. The heating and air conditioning unit is hoisted into place, and then a few stations down the line, sequenced dashboards arrive.
Here we have what we call the IP installation. IP stands for instrument panel. And we've been calling this the brain because it controls the most of the truck. Those are very heavy components. As you can observe, we have 3 different team members that they gotta be properly coordinated because they need to get the IP, insert it into the truck, do the main attachment and some basic connections. Then they gotta do it in 45 seconds.
The swift installation highlights the remarkable efficiency on the line, something they've been continually refining at the Arlington plant for a very long time.
This facility started operation more than 60 years ago.
This was really a very small town when this plant came into being back in the 50s. It's grown from, kind of a cow town into it's big business now. We've got Major League Sports, we've got major entertainment. We're kind of the crossroads between Dallas and Fort Worth. Arlington's become a destination in itself.
The plant opens on January the 6th, 1954, initially to build the Pontiac Chieftain Saloon. At the time, the starting hourly wage is less than £1.50.
I've seen some of the pictures where there are 2, 3 people carrying a panel.
Hard work in a hostile environment. The average temperature in northern Texas from June to September hovers between 30 and 35 degrees Celsius. To combat the heat, the plant becomes the first General Motors facility to install air conditioning.
The labor-intensive work probably was a lot higher. The line probably ran a lot slower. It was a lot harder work, I would think.
The effort pays off. Through the decades, Arlington produces over 10 million vehicles.
There's a great history behind Arlington. We converted this plant into trucks in the late 90s.
Suburban is our biggest product. You're talking about like soccer moms or baseball kids. I mean, where else are you going to fit all of them? So definitely there's a purpose for it.
The love for the product is perhaps only superseded by the love for family.
I have several family members here. My daughter works here. I love her dearly. She's my best friend. And I was so happy that when I got called to work out here, and I'm like, yes, I get to work with my mom. And that was my dream. When she was a little girl, she always said, well, I want to work with my mom. I want to work with my mom. We're like one big family, but I also have folks that I really connected with that work around me. So they really did take care of me. This is what we do to all new people that come in. We have each other's backs.
After the dashboard is secured, it's time to build up the rest of the interior cabin. Craftspeople add the center console. Rear seats, and steering wheel. Before the adjustable front captain's chairs get bolted into place. Workers load fresh windscreens into a safety cell. And a robot adds adhesive to the front glass before installing the panes. The rear glass then gets hoisted into place and attached to the tailgate.
We've been working 6 days a week for a good while, but on the other hand, you know, this business is kind of feast or famine. If you're selling, you want to make everything you can make, and that's how we're happy to be in a position that we're in. We're glad to have a product that people want, and we want to give it to them.
One line over, workers build up the doors. They start by adding the stereo speakers. Then bolt on the door handles. Fix the panes of glass. And add some side mirrors. Before finally giving each door a leather-wrapped touch. A few stations later, finished doors are reinstalled. At most modern car factories, the doors are one of the last items to be installed. But in Arlington, it's a bit different, because the body and the frame are built up independently of each other. In a segregated section of the facility, they prep and dress the massive Chevy V8 engines.
In here, we are completing the engine process to be transferred to the other side of the plant, where it's going to be installed on the frame.
New engines arrive daily, but they don't sit around very long.
It's an awesome experience. I've learned a lot since the 6 years that I've worked here. I enjoy it. I've loaded engines since I was about 5 years old, Chevy engines to be exact.
The first step is installing the beefy engine mount. Using massive semi-automated torque tools.
This is a big truck, but you gotta move it, and it requires a lot of power. These are big engines.
Big engines have been part of the Suburban story for decades. In 1960, the 5th-gen machine debuts and is an instant hit, thanks in large part to a new motor.
One of the things that really changed the game relative for General Motors and Chevrolet was the move from the Stovebolt 6 to a V8. It was an incredibly simple engine, it was easy to work on, but it made a lot of power.
The 5th generation features a 4-speed transmission and optional 4-wheel drive directly from the factory.
What Suburban tapped into early on was that families want the capability of an SUV. They want to be able to go off-road, they want 4-wheel drive, they want to be able to tow. And Suburban was this giant, basically pickup truck-based thing that could seat the whole family and could go anywhere.
These days, the biggest Suburban engine is the 5th generation direct injection 5.3-litre V8. It produces 355 horsepower and nearly 400 pound-feet of torque.
You've got the block, and then we add the transmission and the wire harness. So basically, we just piece the engine together from the pieces that we get.
Finally, they're ready to install the transfer case.
The transfer case helps to transfer some additional power to the front part of the truck or the front wheels.
Transfer cases allow new Suburbans to redistribute the engine's power. On the factory floor, opportunity and advancement is equally as adaptable.
I actually started on this job right here behind us. Walked through the doors as a temp June 21st, 2010. And the team that I started in is now the team that I'm a team leader of.
The good old saying, you can be whatever you want. You know, I started off on the assembly line and I wanted more. So I educated myself. I started looking around at opportunities and worked my way up.
Going wherever you want has been a hallmark of the Suburban since its inception. Yet the machine's radical change comes in 1967, with the introduction of a third door.
So this is the 67 through 72 generation Suburban. It's a very simple shape, and this body style in this generation is particularly iconic with collectors. The big one for this vehicle was the introduction of an additional door to make it easy for people to get in and out that were using it on a daily basis.
By the time the Suburban started getting more doors, it had been around for decades. Automakers are often slow to change a good thing. You got something that works, it's selling, it has a market. You don't want to mess with success.
Chevrolet still doesn't mess with success because every week they build over 7,000 new machines in the final assembly hall.